And what's up, everybody? Bardo Pond, cry, baby, cry. Well, give or take a few minutes, we're at the top of the hour here at KRFF 95.9, LPFM, Moorhead, Fargo, 701-478-4959, RadioFreeFargo.org is where we're streaming as we speak. You can donate there, and you can listen to old shows as well. And like today, noon to 3, at Side Stage with Trav. And there's a Bar 9 acoustic show, I guess the ninth annual one, on Sunday at Bar 9. And he had a bunch of people in here again. So if you listen to that and you think the quality's going to continue, I mean, I hit the wall. There ain't no quality here. But it's Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday at 4 o'clock. At 4:20, I open a big fat bag of cannabis news. And this Thursday's no different. We got a lot to talk about, and we will when we get there. This show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy, Becky's Body Butter, most notably. It's made with kosher full-spectrum CBD, North Dakota grown hemp. It's North Dakota hemp seed oil, CBD, mango butter, the three spices brought to baby Jesus. You can get that on Black Cottage Alchemy online, or you can go to Odds to Ends Gift Shop, 2111 Main Avenue East, West Fargo, or you can jump over here to Tochi Products and get yourself some Becky's Body Butter, made by Black Cottage Alchemy. And they have the Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act petition, so make sure you get in there and sign it. And if you live in another town in North Dakota, go to North Dakota Cannabis Caucus or something, or just tag Leslie Ann Paulson, and boom, bing, bing, magically you'll know more about where you are and where you can sign it. And if you want to be a person who gets the signing, you got to talk to them too. I'm just trumpeting, cannabis, the benefits of cannabis, and that's what we're going to talk about here. Cannabis news, and it'll be current. I'm going to play around a little this week because, quite honestly, if I talked about the news that's happening in the cannabis scene in North Dakota today, it would almost mimic the same thing I've talked about the last couple of weeks, because we're at we're an impasse. We're at impasse. There ain't nothing really happening for us, and quite frankly, the legislative season was not good for cannabis progress in North Dakota. In fact, I would say it was horrible. You know what I mean? And with that, the New Life Center helps people who are homeless and hurting go from merely surviving to truly thriving. Their aim is to help people in need discover value and find hope. The New Life Center has evolved into a multifaceted emergency and crisis service center. To learn more about NLC, visit the website at www.fargonlc.org or give them a call at 701-235-4453. Again, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. We get all the hard-hitting facts about the benefits of cannabis. And I toot the horn of positivity and movement and pushing towards the utopian bliss where, if you want to use it as a potential, an alternative medicine, or just to kind of see how it might, make your evening a little better while you walk your dog, this should be the state that you're allowed to do that, because we've certainly got no problems with raping the ground for oil, So anyway, 4:20, we open a big fat bag of cannabis news, and this Thursday is no different. I'll be here next Thursday, too. Tomorrow is Arbor Day, and I was talking to my daughter, that when I was a kid, Arbor Day, you'd go to school, and you would get those, the bread would be in the bread bags, except there wouldn't be any bread in it, right? And then there would be a tree, like a pine tree, that was sticking in that bag. I don't know if I put it in the bag. Maybe I put it in the bag, a little water, a little dirt, and then brought it home to the folks, and then we planted it somewhere, or you didn't. And I remember as a kid, thinking the next year, oh, look at that, it's going to be big. And I just, I got bored of looking at it. And I don't know if I had just died, or who knows. It might be sheltering 16 people worth of picnicking. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, we're going to get into this here. I've got a little brand new, and most of the music is brand new today. I have even got a little reggae. So this here is the old, it's Keb Mo, but it's the Old Crow Medicine Show. And I'll see you in a little bit. Oh, yeah. I'm ready. I'm chill. You guys? I'm not going to do anything until we hear from the medicine man. That was Old Crow Medicine Show, Keb Mo. You could tell by the sanitizing talk that, this is definitely new, 2021 this year. And that was good stuff. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday here at Radio Free Fargo, KRFF 95.9. At 4:20, we're going to open a big fat bag of cannabis news. We're going to talk about cannabis legalization. We're in North Dakota and everywhere. We're going to talk, apparently we're going to talk about how many jobs that's currently, being produced by cannabis and, related cannabis stuff. So that'll be interesting. And then now currently, if you're holding on to Delta 8 in the state of North Dakota as we speak, son, you, my friend, is breaking the law. You're breaking the law, my friend. So let's make sure you rectify that before you go out there. You know what I mean, son? But anyway, seriously, though, under the cloak of night, you didn't hear nothing about it. And unless you were looking and waiting, you're sleeping. You're asleep. But I, my friend, am awake. And Delta 8 is illegal. And quite frankly, our friend Leslie Ann Paulson, Carrington, shout out Carrington, she grew CBD, and she had some that had too much of something. And I've recently learned that, in fact, the THC that they did test and find to be too high, I mean, what made her plants hot was, in fact, the Delta 8 THC. It wasn't the Delta 9. And so then that starts to make sense. You know what I mean? CBD, you grow, there is a little bit of a particular THC. It's not the one you think. It's Delta 8. But, THC, potato. You know what I'm saying? So if it's a regular cannabis plant, then you're going to see THC in certain levels. And she said that's what made her plants bad, was the amount of Delta 8 THC. So and again, I ran into a dude in Texas when I picked up my Delta 8 before I went over the border to have a bunch of my teeth worked on. And he claimed that it wasn't uncommon to have like 7%, 8% stinking THC. But anyway, Canna-Talk ND on YouTube. Stinking, you'll get this show tomorrow. Philip Canahead's Pilco on Sunday. I got to play some more tunes, and then we'll talk about it in a bit. Here's a new stick figure. That's going to be fun. You're probably like, who hasn't heard of stick figure? First up was stinking brand new Prince Fatty, Weary Eyes, and then World on Fire, featuring Slightly Stupid. I was, I got sucked into it was like watching a featherless bird dancing on social media, and he was dancing to this song. I was like, oh, well, this is good. No wonder the bird's dancing. I want to dance too. Well, it's that time. It might be a little late. So let's get this Canna-Talk ND with Wilson over with.
Yo, it's Wilson from Canna-Talk ND. The super awesome show you're getting ready to listen to. I think you should go and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll wait. Okay, enjoy the show.
Well, we're kind of running a little out of time, so let's just go ahead and, fade the tunes out and tell you welcome. I hope everybody's feeling groovy. I certainly am. It's 420 degrees here in the studio. And in fact, what studio? KRFF 95.9 LPFM. That's the studio. And so we're going to talk about cannabis here. And so if I went typically scattered right before the last song. So yeah, Delta 8, I believe it was like April 23rd. Again, there was no fanfare. There was, and in fact, people say it was signed tonight, which is kind of weird too. There was no fanfare, but in fact, you can take it to the bank. Delta 8 is illegal currently as we speak. So if you've got some, you're a criminal. And can't you see that that's how easy cannabis illegality became back in the day when the hemp, in 1939? It was the same kind of deal. You went to bed a farmer, you woke up the next morning having all your crops being ripped out and handcuffed. So believe me, cannabis being made illegal was not done above board and morally, I would say that the United States was created by a very severe moral code and dipped in, the Bible as their law. Like they got all that out of there. And I'm pretty sure if they were following the Bible that religiously, they wouldn't be promoting something that they could use medically and building and, cannabis. Everybody used it, it was, and by used it, I mean in their day-to-day life, not always, partaking, but, so anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about, but Delta 8, yeah, it was kind of sneaky, and it's done. Minnesota here on Minnesota Moment. It is Minnesota marijuana legalization bill clears 9th House committee on the way to the floor. So let's see. Another Minnesota House committee has approved a bill. The bill advanced through the panel in 11-7 vote. Let me see. What committee is that? So Reform, Finance, and Policy Committee. I don't know. I wouldn't even want to sit in on one of these. I don't think I could handle it. But it is good that they're getting through these amendment. So in review, this is Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. We talk about cannabis in a positive light. I try to stay local unless there's either nothing to talk about locally or there's just something really cool like in the, peripheral of the scope. So South Dakota, I heard it. They did arguments on the 28th. 5 justices listened Wednesday to the sides arguing whether the November 3rd election result on Amendment A should count, and that's interesting. And we'll talk about that. In fact, we can just talk about it right now. So let's see. North Dakota, Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act. It's a constitutional amendment. It's a person-driven initiative. It needs you to either sign or get signed or get signing. Orange Records, Tochi Products here in town for sure. You can grab a petition. Either place, somebody can turn you on to who to talk to get one. But as far as that goes, our legislators, they ain't doing diddly bleh. Like I said, the only thing they did was make sure that something that was legal at the beginning of the legislative session is now illegal thanks to them at the end of the legislative session. So I would say if they were trying to cut the knees off of cannabis legalization, our beautiful legislators certainly did a good job this time around. And so I'm quite frankly, I'm disgusted by most of them. And if you didn't have your head up your high horse hole, you would have to feel the same way. And that's the other thing. People who are conservative, they say South Dakota, Christie don't know, man, is she awesome. And yeah, I can give you she's kind of pleasant to look at in one of those country western shirts with the snappy buttons. But I mean, I get her kind of mindset, like you could maybe give her a moral compass. How can you do that when she knows that she's taking the tax dollars from the very people that voted a particular thing in? She's trying to, hijack it. And the people don't even know how much this lawsuit against their measure is even going to cost them. And Christie don't know me. Christie don't know me either. She don't know him either. So it was ridiculous. So anyway, Indy for Freedom of Cannabis Act, it's the only thing for breakfast and lunch and dinner. Tochi Products or Orange Records here in town. Get involved or be involved. Be the change. Namaste. Very good, very good. Okay, now, South Dakota. So it was kind of neat because I'd forgotten about it. And, Brendan Johnson, it's him and Tim Bayon. But Brendan Johnson, and this is from Leland, so this is really spun, like Brendan Johnson, the Democrat who sponsored the amendment, told the justices, like they had to tell you what party, you know what I mean? Like it should just be Brendan Johnson, but they needed you to know that it was a Democrat. So isn't that interesting? I think it's interesting. Why do I need to know? I just need to know who the lawyer is. So he sponsored the amendment. Well, that's cool. And he told the justices, did we violate the single subject rule? We did not. And I thought, he looked like a older Robert Redford. This guy, smooth as molasses mixed with butter. It was a sight to behold because here's the thing. You're going to have to convince 3 justices in South Dakota of a liberal sounding feeling thing. They can't get a hold of the beneficial to it. They got no problems with prison for profit and, it's a horrible state when it comes to being allowed to do stuff. Stinking lottery there, certainly gamble, so they benefit from that, so they like it. So I can't see that they couldn't see dollar signs here and maybe they can't. So it's scary. It really is scary because for as good as the lawyer for Amendment A did, and we'll just call him Robert R., the lawyer. Again, rarely do I see, like in Iowa, Nebraska. That was sad because they got all the signatures and then it went for a vote for the single subject rule and they lost. And so all that was in vain. So most people are thinking, well, this is going to be similar to Nebraska, And so I think it's Nebraska. It might be Iowa, but I think it's Nebraska. That's where Governor Prickett is. Yeah. Nebraska. So, and they're back in again. But anyway, what happens is the people the underdogs that are fighting for it, Nebraska, they didn't have a star. The only people that were star material were the lawyers against it. And you see it time and time again. You get a little guy getting a little momentum. They want to shut him down, so they hire the best team, the best whatever, and they skunk him. It's just like, a lot of people trying not to get prison time when, you don't have any money and you got to take a public pretender. Your chances aren't great out the gate. And so, even if you were really convincing, you're up against it. And I've seen that time and time again. Nebraska, they didn't have anybody fancy that the judges would listen to. The judges listened to themselves. And so this is a single subject rule thing again. And so I just wanted the guy that was representing Amendment A, this Brendan Johnson, to be the force to be reckoned with, to make the most sense. Because if he's up against this blonde, this young blonde, wearing the pantsuits, using a bunch of words I got no clue, but she wants you to know she knows the words. And that's who he's up against. And in my opinion, I don't even know if it's objective, but he smoked the competition. He had the answers for the lawyer or the judges, and he had no problem making sense of why the judges would be stupid to allow Amendment A to not go through. And so then it was the blonde's turn. Let's see if I can find her name. And then it was the blonde's turn. She had like Lisa Prostrollo, one of the lawyers for the governor, said the process was unclear before the election and the 2021 legislature clarified it. Prostrollo said a pre-election challenge would have been a waste of judicial resources if the amendment had later been defeated. Because the question of the judge was like, how come you guys didn't vet this before? And they basically said, well, we wanted to wait and see because we're lazy. And Johnson said the Supreme Court needs to make clear you can't wait on the sideline, unquote. And he's right. He's absolutely right. So Chief Justice Stephen Jensen, he asked whether the challenge should have come before votes were casted. Governor Kristi Noem, as you know, a Republican, and State Highway Patrol Superintendent Rick Miller challenged the amendment. So she had him do it after the election result was certified. So anyway, Brendan Johnson, a rock star. This guy looked like Gone with the Wind. She just didn't reach the level. And so she was really confusing. Blondes have never been my thing. I'm going to be honest. Brunettes have kind of been my jam. And so, and that's not a hard, position. I could change it probably. If a blonde wanted to talk to me, I could probably change it. But anyway, it was confusing. She didn't pizzazz. And I expected the prosecution, the governors, whatever, I expected them to make this Brendan Johnson or the lawyers for Amendment A to look like the confusing kind, the confusing type. And so this really came through. If the judges are going to do the right thing, and they're going to have to decide by July. So anyway, this came from a state circuit judge, Christina Klinger, declared in February that the election was invalid, and the judge said Amendment A covered multiple subjects, violating the state constitution's one-topic requirement. And it was interesting listening to the blonde, I forget her name, say that. And then the Chief Justice was like, well, show us the multiple subjects. And she just gave a bunch of word nothing. It really was nothing. So anyway, now comes the waiting for the South Dakota Supreme Court to decide whether voters change the state constitution to allow, and that's the thing, cannabis. We have to start calling it cannabis, or at least somebody make sure that when people say marijuana, they're being, it's a racist term. It was built on racism. They wanted you to not, get along with Mexicans and black people. So they didn't want to say that. They didn't say, well, we don't want your kind around. So they connected it to something. They made hemp bad, and they connected it to them. And so hemp was white Iowa farmer. And they turned it to marijuana, which meant black and Mexicans, and not in a nice way. So we really got to stop that. We really got to stop calling it that, because it's cannabis and a variety of different kinds. But it's definitely not marijuana if you want to tell me that you're open-minded and you're not racist. Then by all means, step up. Stop spending so much time with Aunt Jemima's syrup and start calling it cannabis. And start, imploring that other people call it cannabis as well, because marijuana is a racial term. It's a slur. It was created so you would connect cannabis with a minority. And Google it, buddy. That's why. William Hearst, Henry Anslinger, horrible people. They spun it. They made it bad. They demonized it. And they used marijuana as the new word to demonize it and connect it to minorities. So every time I hear that, it's just really sad to me. So if you get a chance, you can go on to my page or you can Google it. But the court proceedings on Wednesday, it was like 10 a.m. Like, they each got 15 minutes. It was really awesome. It really was. I mean, he was just, and I can't explain it more to tell you that you would be proud of the little, movement that could, legalizing cannabis in South Dakota. It looked insurmountable. People said there's no way that's going to happen. And it is happening, but it's happening hard because they're the underdogs. And the people with the power and the pressure don't like it. And so they're fighting them. And it was really good to see, because at some point, the people fighting can't keep fighting. They can't keep fighting the money. They can't keep fighting the paperwork. They drown you in paperwork. You can't afford it. So you just take a settlement, you move on, you go, well, it could have been worse. But if you can keep pushing and grabbing and clawing for cannabis legalization in South Dakota, it's stinking beautiful to see that the lawyer that has to convince 5 Supreme Court South Dakotans, 3 dudes, 2 chicks, and if anybody's going to do it, if anybody would have made it seem like cannabis, it isn't single subject law. And he just really did a good job. So I'm excited. I believe that he trumped that blonde girl. I can't remember her name again. Nicole, I'm going to butcher her last name, but it was interesting. You seen Robert Redford up against this very kind of young, pretty, pantsuited blonde, which is neither here nor there. I'm just saying that was who approached and discussed, and the face of each side. The face of each side was like a Robert Redford looking dude, and then this young blonde girl. And quite frankly, I feel like all she brought to the table was those things, those superficial things. And then big words to kind of, pizzazz you with. Whereas Brendan Johnson, solid guy. If I seen him, I would shake his hand. Well, I wouldn't shake his hand. I'd fist bump him. Or maybe I'd just hug him. I'd probably hug him, I mean, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, so that's good news. I mean, but again, even they said it could go either way. Even with almost that clear winner in pro-Amendment A, it doesn't mean anything, and that's the sadness. That's where people-driven initiatives take the hit, and then people just stop fighting for their rights because they've worked their hardest, and it just didn't matter. And so that's a sad day in South Dakota when the right thing may not prevail. Just because the people in charge, they're not hip and they're not popular to it. They're not down with it. And since they're not down with it and they're down with the way it used to be and the way they want it, the people's voices are going to get squashed, and then it's just a sad day. So anyway, South Dakota, keep pushing. You guys were great. I thought Brendan John. I thought it was beautiful. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. So if you get a chance, you can check that out. I know Canna-Talk ND on Facebook. And ND for Freedom of Cannabis Act is on there too. But anyway, so good news. Montana lawmakers, this is from Normal. Montana lawmakers approve legislation to amend voter-approved marijuana legalization law. Members of the Montana House and Senate, they approved legislation to amend the state's voter-approved adult-use marijuana, sending the measure to Republican Governor Greg Gianforte's desk. So the House approved the House Bill 701 Tuesday by 67 to 32 vote after initially rejecting it. So that's good news. I don't want to tell you this if you're listening to radio, listening to Canna-Talk ND on RadioFreeFargo.org in Montana, but I mean, they cut off the plants. Now, if you're medical, you can still have all 4 and 4. And they raised taxes and did some other things. But most notably is that you were going to be able to have 8 plants, 4 and 4, and now you can only have 2 and 2. So, again, is homegrown a cross you're willing to die on? Then die on it. But it doesn't look like you're going to have to die, probably, to even get one. Now, it was cool that they allowed, because I think medical people, because I believe in it medically, over recreationally, if you were going to have to push me into a box. But so when the medical, when that's appreciated and respected and they still get to grow, that's what it's all about. I think that's what North Dakota could have really shined on this last legislative session if they would have allowed for medical reason and medical card holders to actually be able to grow their medicine. Man, I'd probably email them that I was grateful. But now they suck. I got no respect for them. They haven't given me any respect. If anything, they've kind of dangled a carrot, and then at the very last minute, they told me it wasn't even a carrot and there was no string because it didn't exist. So anyway, here's another article. Only 8% of U.S. adults believe cannabis should be criminalized. Isn't that crazy? Over 90% of U.S. adults believe that cannabis should be legal for either medical or adult use purposes. 60% of respondents agree that marijuana ought to be legal, while 31% additionally believe that it ought to be legal for therapeutic use. Only 8% of U.S. adults say that cannabis should not be legal for either purpose. So that's pretty interesting to me, isn't it? And so we got some more stuff here. This is from Cannabis.net. Harvard just did a study on weed and found out it is safe and effective for chronic pain. And I heard the people in Harvard are kind of smart. I heard like at least 3% of all Harvard grads are smart. So, I'm going to believe it. So anyway, let's see what Harvard found out. There's also a Canadian study that found near 50% reduction in opioid use when substituting with cannabis. And that's fantastic. And again, it's just an amazing plant. And the fact that it's been demonized and spun out of greed and all those other reasons, it's a sad day. And I always keep waiting, like North Dakota, like I said, like to step up and do the right thing when it's not really popular. To me, that's what I'd like to see. Like backbone, able-bodied backbone to stand up in amongst the, But anyway, most people who use cannabis do so for pain management. In fact, 62% of the people using medical cannabis claim to be using it for some sort of pain management. So Harvard found that out of 37 participants, the 6-month study found that cannabis did indeed help with pain, sleep, mood, anxiety, quality of life. The methods that were used range from smoking, vaping, eating oils, and other methods. The researchers found that there was a significant reduction in pain for participants and between 13 to 23% reduction in opioid use. In other words, medical cannabis is a viable treatment option for people suffering from chronic pain, says the smarty smart guys in Harvard. Now, another normal article. This is from February 16th of this year. Legal marijuana industry employs over 321,000 full-time workers. What do you think of that? Well, let's give over 321,000 full-time workers in the cannabis industry a hand. But anyway, jobs in state licensed cannabis industry rose 32% during the past 12 months, and the industry now employs over 321,000 full-time workers. And let's see, 78,000 new jobs over the past year. And then again, 321,000 full-time workers, according to data compiled by Leafly. To put the 2021 job totals in perspective, authors said in the United States, there are more legal cannabis workers than electrical engineers. There are more legal cannabis workers than EMTs and paramedics. There are more than twice as many legal cannabis workers as dentists. Holler at your boy. Let's keep breaking this down. States adding the greatest number of new cannabis-related jobs were California, 23,000 jobs. Florida, 14,000 jobs. Illinois, 8,000 jobs. And Illinois will probably, it'll be interesting to see how many jobs Illinois, in fact, employs once they get cooking. Overall, the total number of full-time jobs in the licensed cannabis industry has risen nearly threefold since 2017. So all-time highs for all of it. During a year that saw many sectors of the American economy constrict, we witnessed historic economic growth in the legal cannabis industry. And that is phenomenal. You know what I'm saying? So, in review, ND for Freedom of Cannabis Act. That's the person-driven initiative, 21 plus, 12 plants, licensed business, cut and dry. Orange Records, Tochi Products here in town. North Dakota Cannabis Caucus, you can find out more. RadioFreeFargo.org is where you're listening to Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. We talk about cannabis in a positive light. 420, we open a can of boogity bang. And this day is no different. Again, in review, ND for Freedom of Cannabis Act, sign it, get involved. Otherwise, there's nothing pro-cannabis coming out of our legislators, period. And in fact, and I don't know where you live, but probably that particular person that was voted against you if you're for cannabis in any way. I mean, they didn't allow anything. And so, quite frankly, it burns my hind end. And I hope it burns everybody else's hind end so they get out and they get stinking signatures so we can give the ultimate poo on them. You know what I'm saying? But it's a lot of work. So anyway, there's that. And then Delta 8 at night, no fanfare. Governor Doug Buzzkill signed Delta 8 as illegal substance. So if you've got it currently on your person, and I suppose you can still get a Dewey with it too. So, and I don't know Deweys if they have testing. So if they can just smell Delta 8, I think that's enough. And again, the complaint is with the CBD farmers that when it's tested hot, it's tested for the Delta 8 THC. So that, really was, again, North Dakota legislators cut the legs off of any dream or any kind of, progress that could have been continued to be made, But anyway, so yeah, Delta 8 no longer legal in the state of North Dakota. Governor Doug Buzzkill signed that into existence. House Bill 1045, that's the one you'll find it under. ND for Freedom of Cannabis Act is being pushed anywhere in the state of North Dakota. Orange Records, Tochi Products here. And there you go. This hour of music on KRFF 95.9 LPFM is being underwritten by Flatland Guitar and Luthery. Flatland Guitar is your full-service guitar shop and your exclusive dealer for Yamaha, Taylor, and Paul Reed Smith guitars, amongst many others. They also sell guitars on consignment as well as take trade-ins, along with having a full-service on-site repair center. Check out Flatland Guitar and Luthery on Facebook or visit them in person at 1450 25th Street South in Fargo. KRFF 95.9 LP. FM. The Thursday, you get Side Stage with Trav, noon to 3. Automation till 4. Then you got Canna-Talk ND with Wilson till 5. Then you got Stinky Arts Music Mart. Locals on the 8 and Radio Free Madness, and that is your Thursday on KRFF 95.9. You just listened to about 20 minutes of me talk about cannabis in a positive light, I think. South Dakota, again, the two lawyers, because they're trying to get it thrown. Well, the state of South Dakota is trying to get it to not be valid, even though those, they voted it in. And so lawyers did oral arguments, and so now we're waiting for the 5 judges to determine whether or not Amendment A violated the single subject rule. And from what I've seen, and I watched the whole thing, and you can go to Canna-Talk ND on my Facebook page, and I've got it there. You can watch it. And I don't know. I think it was. I think we won. I think pro-cannabis won. But again, if all the judges are anti-cannabis, or if they're getting paid under the table by Christie, don't know, and we'd be stupid not to think that there wasn't some palmy, greasy, because that's the way the world works, and in South Dakota, that's the only way it works. So I guarantee you there's some closed-door talky stuff that I'm not happy with, and hopefully it doesn't derail this. But anyway, Canna-Talk ND with Wilson. Every Thursday, 4:20, we open a bag of cannabis news, and I'm now zipping it back up. I'll be back here next Thursday at 4 o'clock. So anyway, here are some new tunes here. And then after me, again, Stinky Art Music Mart, Locals on the 8, and then Radio Free Madness. So here's Counting Crows, brand new. Off with Elevator Boots, Counting Crows, and then How Old Is My Soul, Joe Kaplow. Canna-Talk ND with Wilson every Thursday. Radio Free Fargo, KRFF 95.9 LPFM, Moorhead, Fargo. Next Thursday, I'll be back. Up next is Stinky Arts Music Mart. And this show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy. You can go to Tochi Products. You can go to Odds Twins in West Fargo, or you can go online, Black Cottage Alchemy. And you want Becky's Body Butter. She's got other stuff, but that's the stuff that people are notably most going to refer you to, because it's helped every one of my family members, and it continues to help me in some shape or form. So thank you. And this show is brought to you by Black Cottage Alchemy, ND for Freedom, a Cannabis Act. Go to Tochi Products, go to Orange Records, and get yourself the signature on the petition. to legalize cannabis. Again, I'm Wilson, Canna-Talk ND with the said name. Next Thursday, 4:20, we open a bag of cannabis news. Educate yourself so you can educate others. Here's David Allen, Judgment Day. Peace.